5, 6, 7, 8.
Richard. Let's talk about Richard Gilmore.
Richard in Stars Hollow. Richard everywhere,
Richard
actually.
Gilmore to say. All right.
Yeah.
Here we go. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Gilmore to Say with Tara and Haley. I'm Tara. This is Haley. Hi, Haley.
Hi, Tara.
You're looking particularly witchy today.
Ooh, well, in our world, it's Halloween.
It's true.
That sounded like in Girl World.
What?
In Girl World. You know, in Mean Girls, when she said in Girl World.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in our world, it's Halloween. True. But for y'all, it's mid-November. But this is feel like is autumnal. It's like, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
You know what I mean? If you're on YouTube with us, you can see me. And if you're on audio, if you're on streaming, pop over to YouTube and see.
It's true. I'm wearing red today, which is probably very sinful
You're
for
wearing
Richard
crimson.
Gilmore episode. Well, I wouldn't call this crimson per se, but
no, it's just what Emily says. Yeah. You're wearing crimson. I'm wearing red.
Very different. But I'm wearing a sweater from Newly because we love Newly in this house.
We love Newly.
With a dog that's wearing a football jersey. So I felt like it was very Ted Koppel's Big Night Out.
Yeah. It also feels like very Dean because it's a quite tall
not
dog.
Dean. Like this dog could be Dean.
Yeah, he wears like numbers on his shirt all the time. Not like jerseys, but numbers
but like that was a
shirts.
big early 2000s thing.
It was because so does everyone else on the show. But I immediately saw that and I was like, "Is that Dean?" And you were like, "No, it's Richard."
Remind you
obviously.
Anyway, it's Veterans Day today. Thank you for your service if you are a veteran. It's very important to celebrate those people in your lives or not in your lives, people you see on the street. Say hey, say thank you. And it's also really like peak fall. And nothing to me says I am an autumn more like Richard Gilmore. And I'm so excited to talk about him today because we've never really done a deep dive episode on Richard.
No, like why?
I know.
I feel like a lot of next year, like especially prepping for this episode, because I watched so many of his monumental episodes last night. I was making poisoned apples, of course.
I saw your picture. Making poisoned apples while prepping for tomorrow's episode was really funny.
I loved it. But I'm having to sell them differently because both my niece and nephew have seen Snow White, so I can't call them poison apples because they are fearful. So, obviously. But I digress.
Yeah.
Where was I? Oh, episodes. Prepping last night made me realize how many like deep dives I want to do. Like from just prepping for Richard, there's so many things that he says or people say around him that I'm like, wait, we have to talk more about that, but I can't like fit it into this episode because it's going to be a whole episode unto itself. And I've been wanting to deep dive Richard Gilmore for quite some time.
Yes, I
know. I feel like even from just prepping this, I'm like, there's so many other layers to him of like his relationships with other people, but just like, this is really just an episode that's just himself.
Yeah. His relationships with other people are ones we've explored. His relationship with Emily, his relationship with Lorelai, with Rory, especially when we first started the podcast back in 2022. We did a like father, like daughter episode. We've done an Emily Richard episode and we have more planned for next year that I'm really excited about. But when you brought up this idea of doing just an exclusive Richard episode, I was like, this is perfect. It's just the perfect time. I am an autumn and it is autumn. So
it is, as it turns out, it's autumn. All the autumn things are happening. It's Halloween for us today. Thanksgiving is coming up. It's all the good things.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Also, speaking of Thanksgiving, before we actually get into the Richard of it all, we do have Thanksgiving merch that is coming out or has already come out at this point that we've recorded it. We're not entirely sure what day we're dropping it, but be sure to check out on Instagram or on our website at www.gilmoretosay.com. We have some fun Thanksgiving merch and we've never done that before, which is so funny.
That seems like so crazy to say Thanksgiving merch.
I know. For this very Thanksgiving centered show.
Yes.
About family and food.
Like the main holiday feels like Thanksgiving. Don't skip the rolls, of course, as you will see. And it's just kind of like a play on our fall essentials, but with the Thanksgiving essentials centered around, what else? A deep fried Korean Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And it's cutie. We love it.
Yeah. We're really excited. So head over to our website or go to Instagram to see a preview. We're really excited. It's going to be...
Yeah.
It's kind of kicking off this idea of doing Thanksgiving merch maybe annually. Maybe next year we'll have a little Thanksgiving merch to release as well. So love it. Love a good Thanksgiving shirt. Give me something to wear after I eat all that turkey.
See, mostly that's what sides. I'm thinking. Mostly sides. Here's the thing. I want to wear the Don't Skip the Rolls shirt while I'm cooking. And then I want to put the other one on, the like more like doodly one, as we call them, after I've eaten. So it's like I'm gonna get a shirt that fits, and then I'm gonna get an oversized shirt for later.
Love that for
I'm
you.
gonna have my second piece of pie all cuddled up on the couch with my little t-shirt on. I think it's great.
It.
That's my dream for all of you.
Yeah. So let's get into Richard Gilmore. We kind of wanted to talk about the history of who he is. We've learned a lot about him on the show, which is so funny because
where does he come from?
You know, because Richard, Ed Herman, who plays the character of Richard Gilmore, may he rest, he had a contract with the show because he wanted to be, what would be the technical term for his role? Guest star? Not a guest star.
I think his special appearances.
Special appearance.
I think
by
isn't that
Edward
what he
Herman.
says?
Yes, and that was because he wanted to be able to. He was from the East Coast and
Connecticut, right?
From Connecticut, yeah, or at least living in Connecticut. But he wanted to be able to be bi-coastal in that way, spend time with his family, and I commend that. I think that that's so important to, especially at that point in his career, be like, hey, I really want to be a part of the show. And a big part of that, like being the patriarch of the family that it centers around, I think is a key player. But it's interesting that he's such a key player and yet he's not in all of the episodes. We learn a lot about him. And yet I feel like, you know, because the relationships between Lorelai, Rory, and Emily are really the central focus of the show. And he is a little bit, he's got one foot in, one foot out. He's on the outskirts, but he's so involved. I think we learn a lot about him despite the show really being about the Gilmore Girls.
What's weird is we learn way more about this character than we ever do about Emily.
Yes.
Who is like in way more episodes than he is because she's like a regular player in the show.
And also had an agreement with the show that she was, well, I don't know if this was dictated by Amy and by the WB or specifically by Ed and Kelly, but they also had similar circumstances where Kelly writes about this in her book, The Third Gilmore Girl, that she wanted to be back on the East Coast in New Jersey with her husband. So, you know, she would split her time between filming out in LA and being back on the East Coast. But Kelly, of course,
that's why they worked
episodes.
so well. Yeah. They just like both had high priority of their family, which is interesting to like play the parents of these like, or of this, the main character, and like spend a lot of your time being with your family back east, where the show is technically set. Love that for them. But yeah, I was thinking about that last night when I was like watching all of his like monumental eps, that I was like, what do we know about Emily like in this same regard? Because we know so much about him and his family and his parents, kind of his upbringing, that we only know about Emily from like implying kind of what she has said. There's a little bit dusting in season 7, which you can like give or take whether or not that's true. But even when they're like at Yale doing the little tour, we learn way more about Richard's side of it rather than where Emily is coming from in that.
Yeah, we learn about where
setting.
Emily lands as far as like how she is pertinent to Richard's story and how the two of them met and how the two of them ultimately got engaged. But we don't really learn a lot about Emily's history. And we've talked about that in our episode deep diving on Emily Gilmore. But I think that's kind of fun because it leaves a lot of room, especially if ever there is a prequel series about these two characters. It does leave a lot of open opportunity to kind of build Emily's storyline.
So flexible there. Like you can kind of do anything, but I kind of love it because her in relation to him is so much of who her character is. Like I know it's a season 7 line, but she's only ever been Mrs. Richard Gilmore. Yeah. And so I like the idea that like you kind of transition like out of her life or out of her life before Richard, and she really is just his wife. And that's kind of who we see her as. And so her family kind of, her history kind of disappears a little bit into that, which is a character trait in itself. But I think that there's a lot to be said about Richard in that regard of how Emily supports him. But let's back up to the beginning of his life.
Yeah, we want to start with talking about his family and his upbringing, who he was growing up and kind of what we've learned. So he was born in January of 1943, and that is an estimate based on the episode That'll Do Pig because they are celebrating his 60th birthday. And so that is what we can surmise about Richard Gilmore's character is that he was born sometime in January of 1943.
Yeah. I say January 14th. That's just when That'll Do Pig aired.
Yes,
so.
that is the air date of the episode. He was born to Lorelai the first, Lorelai Gilmore, who was married to Charles Abbott Gilmore. And we only know that name of his father because his father doesn't come up nearly as much as his mother does, of course, because she is, though dead in the first couple episodes of the series, she is revived and
quote unquote dead.
Brought in the third Lorelai in season 1. But Charles Abbott Gilmore is listed in her obituary when she does pass in the reigning Lorelai in season 4. So that is the only reason that we know Richard's father's name.
We also learn it when Emily is going through all of the papers because she asks what Trix's maiden name was. And she learns that it was Gilmore. And she says, no, because they were second cousins.
Yeah, she and Charles were second cousins. They were indeed. But
which is all I can think of is cousins.
Identical cousins. Exactly. Me too. I love when Lorelai says that. So it's very obvious to the audience that Richard has a very, very, very deep affection for his mother. And
too much so.
Though at first she's initially deceased, at least they're speaking of her as if she's deceased.
Lorelai the first was my mother.
Yeah, it was my mother. And I believe that was in Kill Me Now.
That was in Kill Me Now, the cold open.
Yes. He describes her as being an extremely accomplished equestrian, a distinguished patron of the arts, and she was also world famous for her masquerade balls, which I'm like,
I need that. I want that. I want that storyline.
I would love in an Emily and Richard prequel if Emily shows up to one of Trix's, because famously Trix doesn't like her. There has to be an episode where
at a masquerade ball.
At a masquerade ball where like Emily and Penelon are there.
And Trix doesn't know that it's her.
It's giving Gossip Girl.
It's giving Gossip Girl, but like it's kind of what I want from the prequel. I kind of want like the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel meets Gossip Girl meets like, you know, collegiate Gilmore Girls.
Yeah.
I know. But like that's exactly what I thought of when I thought of the masquerade ball. Is like Emily coming up in a mask, blue dress, of course, or maybe like I don't know, like Cinderella.
Yeah, totally.
Cinderella story. Oh, that would be so good.
So good. But I wrote the third Lorelai. She's alive. Trix is alive.
Well, because she says in that episode in the third Lorelai, you talk about me like I'm dead. And I'm like, okay, that's a nice little
It was a nice little
sign
nod
off.
to be like, all right, yeah. We did act like she was dead for a little bit. But Trix lives in London. He adores her. He calls her Trix, that's her nickname, even though her name is Lorelai, and Gran is what Lorelai calls her. But he refers to her as being brilliant. He worships this woman. And we get a little history on their dynamic growing up. We do have a reference to when he was 10 from Sadie when he's lecturing Dean. But on his 10th birthday, Trix told him, life is a battle and you either enter it armed or you surrender immediately. And I feel like that really sets up who Richard is as a character. Life is a battle and you either enter it armed or you surrender immediately.
Immediately.
And that really informs what he says to Dean at the table in Sadie season 2, episode 1, when he's kind of going off about how Dean is basically not good enough for Rory. He says, when I was 10 years old, I knew exactly where I wanted to work. I knew I wanted to go to Yale and put on a nice suit every day and be a very important man in a very powerful firm. And I knew I wanted to travel and see the world. I wanted to see La Traviata and at the La Scala Opera House. I wanted to walk the ruins of Pompeii. I wanted to travel the Far East. And so I feel like, I don't even know if this was intentionally done, but that quote on his 10th birthday that Trix says to him, you know, you either enter it armed or you surrender immediately, really informed him being like, okay, I know exactly who I want to be, where I want to go. His father was your father was a Yale man. Trix says to him, yeah, you were a Yale man. Your father was a Yale man. Like it really, I think, sets up the very foundation of who Richard Gilmore is and becomes, and the man that we see today, because we meet him, you know, when he's in his late 50s. That's a very different version of who a person is growing up. There've been there's an evolution, obviously, of...
You've had some things happen between 10 and 50.
Exactly. And so to hear kind of the origin story in a very benign way. This is a very, until we started, researching for this episode, I never really took those things to heart. It's backstory, but it wasn't something that I connected to themselves until I really thought about it. And I was like, oh, when you were 10
was huge for you.
Was a big deal for you. I also believe, I looked this up and I couldn't quite find where they exactly said this.
That's what I was going to ask you.
I think this is also when his father passed away.
I think that I watched The Reigning Lorelai last night, and maybe I missed it, but the only real reference I could find to his father dying was that it was his first custom suit that got made, and he lied to his mom and told her that it didn't fit anymore and that he outgrew it because he couldn't wear it anymore.
Yeah.
But everywhere that I looked up online, it said that his father died when he was 10.
Yeah.
Which is so interesting.
I don't know where that came from.
I don't know where that came from.
If you guys know, let us know.
Maybe it's referenced in another episode. The footnote for it on the Gilmore Girls Wikipedia was from The Reigning Lorelai, but I couldn't find it in there. And maybe I just am missing it. Maybe I'm not seeing it.
I'm with you. I also couldn't find it. I was like, is this just an assumption? Maybe.
But I do love the idea that is the case, because it's pretty consistent that 10 years old keeps coming up, because that's when Trix said life is a battle. And then that was when he said, when I was 10 years old, I wanted to be someone very important. And then when we get to Let the Games Begin, that's when he references that when Lorelai was 10, she came into his office and took his diploma off the wall and said, I'm going to go to Yale too. And she didn't give it back for, I don't know how long. I imagine he got it back because she left. But regardless, that was when she was 10 too.
Oh, and so can you imagine? She leaves. She's 16. She just 17. She just had Rory. She leaves and they're devastated. And he goes up to her room and opens one of her her nightstands, and his Yale diploma is in there.
Well, it has to be framed. It's going to be big, right?
Fair.
Maybe it's just leaning against the wall and he has to take it back to his office.
Oh,
hard,
rough. Tough.
As that dog might say, rough.
As the dog on my sweater might say, rough.
Yeah, but 10 kept sticking out to me because he kept repeating it. It was like in Sadie when he said that, when I was 10 years old. But I just love that it always starts with it, put on a suit, because in presenting Lorelai Gilmore, when he's talking about becoming obsolete, he says something very similar, which is, I don't want other options. I want to get up every morning and put on my suit and go to the office. And I'm like, that was so foundational for you. But when his father died, that was when he first got his first custom suit. And so it's that's why I think it's 10, because it always comes back to him being 10 years old, to getting this information from his mom, to wearing his first suit, to then having this dream of being a man who puts on a suit and is very important and goes to work and works at a very powerful firm. And I'm like, that is so interesting. And you need to go to therapy.
Yeah.
You need therapy, not a custom suit.
Put it on a t-shirt.
Put it on a suit.
Yeah, put it on a suit. It's true. And I know it's a very generational thing to have your dreams be so affiliated with what you do. For Richard, I don't think that is any different. I know that then kind of trickles down to his views on what those around him and his daughter, his granddaughter, the people they associate themselves with, should be doing. It's a lot of should.
Yeah.
And so I agree with you that there's definitely a complex there, but I also think it was just it was just of the time. It was his identifier. And I think that is also how he identifies other people. That is how he, for lack of a better term, judges them and categorizes them. We see that in Sadie.
Yes, he likes that. He likes doing that. He likes the stereotype. But at the same time, he wants his daughter and granddaughter to live outside of it, which I find very interesting, because he kind of likes the world when it kind of fits where it needs to be.
Oh, yeah, of course.
But at the same time, he doesn't want to fit into any of those places, but he wants you to.
I have a lot to say about that later.
We have a lot to say. That's why we're here. More to say. Yeah. The only other thing I really learned about his childhood was in Bracebridge Dinner when he liked to go on the roller coasters.
Roller coasters. He's talking about taking Emily to Coney Island, or that they had gone to Coney Island. She's like, that must have been your other wife. He's like, I love it. And it's because he is finally feeling, and this is, of course, Emily doesn't know this, the audience doesn't know this yet in Bracebridge Dinner, but he has retired and he is feeling this sense of freedom, which is so interesting, going back to like, I wanted to put on a suit every day. I don't want to do anything else. I don't want other options. I want to get up every morning and put on my suit every day. And this is the first time in his life that he's kind of going back to like the frivolous activities that he kind of, for lack of a better term, like puts down when it comes to Emily and her life and what she does. I think that he's kind of like going back to that, and I think that that's so cute. I know it doesn't last too long. But
no, it doesn't last very long at all. But he wants to have a silly goose time is what he wants to do.
That's what he wants to do. It's true. But kind of going back to the beginning, after we learn about his upbringing, we do learn a lot about his education and schooling. Of course, a lot of that is centered around the fact that he went to Yale, and that becomes a huge plot point in the show in regards to Rory. Yeah. So what we learn about him, he was on the fencing team in college. We learn that in Love and War and Snow, he talks about that. And he almost married someone named Lucinda Lester, which...
He almost married a lot of people. He almost married
a lot of people. I guess Emily was very third time's a charm.
Oh, wow. Oh, maybe. We haven't learned about anyone else. But yeah, we need that prequel.
Yeah. So true. Well, just because I'm thinking Lucinda Lester, Penelon Lott.
Emily Gilmore. That's the only one that we know about. That's all I'm saying.
That's true.
These are the ones we're informed about.
Yeah. But he says that his years at Yale were absolutely the most gratifying ones of his life. He says that to Rory and Let the Games Begin. And... Yeah. I love that. He really, really you can tell he loved his time in college. It was so exciting for him. Every time Rory, talks about, especially once she gets into Yale and she talks about the things that she's doing, where she's staying, what library she's going to, it is like their way of connecting, which they are already very, very connected, but he loves to connect with her over those things.
And it really feels like those were his glory days.
Glory days for sure.
There's so much that he was involved in, because in Let the Games Begin, the reason they're going to Yale is because there is a reunion of the Whiffenpoofs, who he calls like the Beatles, but with better table manners.
About it. Yeah. I love.
But like going through that with them, because Let the Games Begin is a pretty monumental episode for Richard, because we learn his backstory at Yale. They're kind of like taking him, or he's kind of taking them on this tour based on his experience. They went to an art gallery, which we learned from Emily was where he did the frown, step back, wrinkle, and sigh. Yeah. And then he would talk about the paintings that he'd seen in Paris and the colors of Titian. And like you would think that he was like so worldly. And this is when, Richard says they'll think I'm some kind of Lothario, which, like, you know what? I'm getting the impression Lucinda Lester, Penelon Lott, Emily Gilmore, someone was a little Lothario.
Well, Emily says so much. She goes, "Well, you were."
Well, you were. And he says he was a young single man who wanted to experience life and women.
And women. And this is kind of why in our second episode we compare him to Logan,
to Mr. Logan Huntsberger. And I just feel it. Like, there's just so much about him. There was one in particular. What was it? It reminded me of You Jump, because Emily says she doesn't steal him, as she gave him a choice. And that's something that always comes up in Logan's arc and Logan's storyline. But like, I was like, ooh, I miss my TikTok days when I was watching it last night, because I was like, oh, I want to do some parallels. But I was like, you know what? As it turns out, I have a new Gilmore Girls outlet. It's this podcast.
True. It's
so if
true.
You see some Logan and Richard parallels on the reels in the near future, you know whose mind they're coming from. Yeah.
It's true. But yeah, he definitely has other interests than Logan, which we did talk about in our episode about paralleling them. I don't think I'd ever catch Logan in the Whiffenpoofs.
Oh, no.
You know what I mean? But he also draws some parallels in his history at Yale to Marty, which we learn in Ted Koppel's Big Night Out.
Boy, do we ever.
Boy, do we
ever. But we also, in Let the Games Begin, I will say, we get the first reference to Penel and Lott, to Lenny Lott.
Yes. Speaking of Ted Koppel's Big Night Out, Lenny and Lott. And yes, before we move on to the information we get in Ted Koppel, he does share that he was pinned. He was engaged to Lenny and Lott.
Invitations were sent out.
Yeah. And, you know, he saw Emily in her blue dress and it was game over.
And that was it. Yeah. She showed up at his fraternity party, which like in the prequel would be the iconic moment. Like I feel like that's the moment we would be building towards, is like the fraternity party, Emily showing up, blue dress. And he said he had no choice when he saw her. Oh, love it.
So good.
Which I feel like sometimes that kind of reminds me of Rory and Logan, is like he saw Rory in the blue dress. You jump.
Yeah.
Had no choice.
It's your choice.
It's your choice, Ace.
Yeah,
and sure. She didn't choose him, but he sure as hell chose her.
It's
for quite some time.
Very true. But moving on to the information we learn in Ted Koppel's Big Night Out, which is the Harvard-Yale game episode in season 4. He starts that episode out with Rory and Paris sitting with them in the dining hall, and that is when Asher Fleming and Paris Geller meet.
No.
Eye roll.
No.
Asher Fleming was one of Richard's classmates, which is interesting. But what he shares with these girls about his time here is so controversial, because I'm like, you and your friends were kind of mean.
You were kind of bullies.
You were
Richard
kind
Gilmore.
of big bullies.
Yeah.
He talks about how they tied Richard's roommate one night in between 2 mattresses and threw him out the window, and then they did it every night for a month until he transferred.
What did this guy do to you?
Nothing. He said it was because he was chubby. I'm like, guys.
Okay, that just like, admittedly, that just seems like so much effort to tie him between 2 mattresses every night.
That kid needs to go to therapy. Talk about therapy.
Well, that kid has to go to therapy because Richard Gilmore
didn't go to therapy. Exactly.
Oh my God. I don't really remember that, but wow.
I know.
Wow. I hope that kid is like super successful, has like a super loving wife, an amazing family, and just goes on vacation all the time.
Yeah, me too.
All the time.
Me too.
And is slightly medicated probably.
Yeah. Wouldn't blame him.
Because, oh my God. We also learned in that moment, in addition to him being a bully, is that he's been going to the Harvard-Yale game for like 32 years or something
32
like that.
years, it's tradition. And kind of when we move into the things that he values, I think tradition is definitely one of them. Tradition. Yeah, he loves a Fiddler on the Roof reference. Anyway, the other thing we learn about him when Marty approaches later in that episode and they're tailgating is that he was naked for an entire month his sophomore year. He said,
to protest the dress code.
Yes, I and a group of like-minded young men decided to protest the new dress code by wearing silk ties and nothing else. Maybe it was just that they had to wear silk ties. They couldn't wear like anything.
Could be.
So they decided, we're going to wear silk ties and nothing else.
Nothing else.
We were written up by the dean of admissions and threatened with expulsion. We were also suddenly very popular with the ladies. And I'm like, Richard Gilmore, you were so Lothario. You were so...
absolutely.
You were a
young
Logan
single man who
Huntsberger.
wanted to experience life. I could see Logan doing that.
Absolutely.
Logan would be naked for a month.
100%.
Yeah. Like there's like a
Colin
Venn
and
diagram
Finn
of some
would just wear
things.
nothing but a silk tie every night.
See, I think that Logan would do it in protest. I think that Finn and Colin would just do it because. But I love his reaction to hearing that Marty, he was like, did I hear my daughter call you naked guy?
Yeah.
And he was like, one night naked does not a naked guy make, or something like that.
Yeah.
I forget the exact line, but. And I was like, oh, you're just throwing this information out willy-nilly to anyone who wants to know.
Yeah.
All right, then. Sure.
Or I was like,
sure.
add this to the list of things I never needed to know about my parents.
Yeah, definitely. Also, when he's like really popular with the ladies, I personally, if a man was naked for a month, that's not gonna do it for me. I'm gonna have a lot of questions for you.
Yeah.
But was a different time. It was an all male school also.
It's true.
So I guess the the ladies who wandered in and out, where was he naked?
I know.
Always? For a whole month? No clothes? None?
Yeah. I know.
That's what the prequel's for. We got
I
to
have
find
a
out more
lot of
about
questions.
this.
It's true.
It's going to be an HBO series.
Yeah. Maybe that's how it starts.
Yeah. Just
Emily's
naked.
like, hello. Okay.
Yeah.
It's very Rory and Marty of them.
Wait, we don't know how they met, do we?
No, but that would be a really good.
That'd be really good. We'd want to
really,
know
really
that.
good.
Like all the way from that to him proposing and her saying fine.
Fine. Love.
Fine.
So moving into Richard's career and his legacy, that is kind of how we're introduced to Richard. Because everything that we just talked about are things that come out throughout the series. But what we learn at the beginning of the series in Kill Me Now, because that's when we kind of learn a lot about Richard Gilmore. Our introduction to him in the pilot is not so great. He doesn't make a great first impression, to be completely honest, because he is really rude to his daughter. Already? Yeah. And just the things he says at the dinner table are just not great. So by the time we get to episode 3, Kill Me Now, when Emily suggests that the two of them go golfing, and he reluctantly goes, and he ends up bonding with Rory, and that really upsets Lorelai.
He really doesn't want to go.
He doesn't, but he ends up having a wonderful time with her. I do think part of it is because Rory is very fascinated by what he does. And this is when we learn what he does. So he is the executive vice president of the Gurman Driscoll Insurance Corporation, and he oversees their international division, which means he travels a lot. And I thought that that was a really good way for the writers to justify why Ed Herman would be special appearance.
Yeah. They're like,
traveling.
we need him to be gone.
We need him. What does he do?
Times a season.
He travels.
Insurance. Yeah. No one knows.
Yeah. I thought that it was a really, really good way to implement his absence into the story, because there are a lot of references to him traveling, and he gets to go to some exotic places, some not so exotic places. Akron.
Sometimes he's in Prague. Other times he's in Ohio.
Yeah.
Very different. I don't
Very,
know what
very
international insurance is happening in Ohio, but who knows? Maybe you need a passport to go to Ohio. Ohio? Okay, Haley. Ohio.
But by the time we get to season 2, episode 6, presenting Lorelai Gilmore with the debutante ball, and he's obviously very cranky, and we talked about this a little earlier, he's being phased out. And he's very agitated about it. And
he invented phasing out.
He did. He invented the term. And he is taking a lot of it out on Emily.
Which is what he does. It's pretty par for the course if we're going to make golf puns based on his interests here.
Yeah, it's true.
But that's what he does. It's like when things start to kind of go awry in any, I guess, realm of his life, it kind of ends up being taken out on his wife.
That's pretty fair. That is very fair.
Yeah.
And I think part of the reason that he is specifically in this episode so agitated is that he keeps being like, no, I have to go do this, because he's like, I don't know, almost like clutching onto his job now at this point. It's like, I have to go in early. I have to go do this. I have to go do this because this is what I do. This is who I am. I am Richard Gilmore. It's like he's doubling down, and that is subsequently the ripple effect of that is that it's really taking a toll on his wife.
Yeah,
and
because at 10 years old, he decided he's insulting her 100%. And it just feels like that thing of going back to 10 years old. He decided he was going to wear a suit every day and never changed his mind. And that's his whole life, which we get a little glimpse of after he retires or after he announces retiring, because Emily has no idea what to do with him, because she said, we got married, we went to Europe, got back, he went to work, and it's been that way ever since. And so she doesn't know how to spend the day with him because he's kind of getting on her nerves.
Oh, yeah.
But it's because he identifies, and I feel like a lot of people can identify with that as they get older, that your whole life is your job. And so what are you going to do when you stop working? And that's definitely hitting him really hard.
No,
because
100%.
Season 2, for the most part, before we get to Back in the Saddle again, is about him being phased out because he invented phasing people out. He has the parking spot of the last guy that he phased out. And so he feels it. And so from presenting Lorelai Gilmore to the Bracebridge dinner, something occurs in his life at work, and that is that he resigns and he's decided he's going to retire. And he doesn't tell Emily about it, obviously, but when they do talk about it, he was really glad to have done it.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like he worked himself into this anger that he was like, no one values the work that I've put in here, and you're just going to phase me out. And it was the first time people at work saw him smile in forever.
And I find what he says to Floyd, which is the introduction of Floyd Styles, we just don't know it yet.
Boy, is it ever.
He says, in describing his resignation, he says, I detailed all of my years with the company, all of the travel I'd done, all of the weekends I put in, the sacrifices I had made, including time with my family. So you can tell that like that really did take a toll on him for the firm. And the more I talked, the angrier I became. And then suddenly I heard myself resign, just like that. And it's so fascinating to have him relieve himself and release himself of this responsibility, because he's starting to create this laundry list of all of the things he has sacrificed for a job that doesn't value him. And I do think that is sometimes the reason why people go into business for themselves, which is exactly what he ends up doing.
Yeah. Because it's like, it's interesting to think that like he had this like big relief from resigning from his job to several episodes later being like, you know what, I'm done. I'm done with all of this. Because I think sometimes you just need a break.
Yeah,
like you
absolutely.
just need to like, especially break from like the situation that he was in, where like they basically were telling him that he lost his value there, that like you were gone, you were being phased out. Eventually you were going to have to resign or retire or whatever in order for you to bounce, because we weren't going to have you working here anymore. Mm-hmm. But that lasted literally just a couple of episodes.
Yeah. And you can tell he's a little bored. Obviously he starts to feel this sense of, as you mentioned before, feeling obsolete in Richard and Stars Hollow. He says, I never thought about retirement. I never once imagined that I would go from being a productive member of the human race to a decrepit old drone sitting at the club at 3 p.m. drinking brandy and playing cards. Like, that is not who he wants to be. And it's not until back in the saddle again that he really realizes, I don't want to be retired. I just wanted to get out of that situation I was in. That was making me miserable. Working doesn't make me miserable. Working makes me feel productive, like a productive member of the human race. Yeah. And I'm glad that he comes to that conclusion.
I am glad that he comes to that conclusion. I do wish that he could have like come to a middle ground of like, yeah, you don't have to be working to be a productive member of the human race. You can do other things. You can have other interests. He has a lot of them. But I think that he just doesn't know anything else and needs that. But it is in Richard and Stars Hollow that we learn like a little bit more about him. We learn that he wakes up at 5:30 every day.
I was going to say, after this, I had like, what are Richard's habits?
Yeah, because he loves a grapefruit, that man.
Half a grapefruit
before breakfast aids digestion. I disagree. I couldn't do a citrus on an empty stomach.
Citrus on an empty stomach is hard, for sure. But I love a grapefruit. A bruleed grapefruit, say less.
We did talk about this in Richard and Stars Hollow in the Rewatch Club,
so good.
which we recently covered.
So good.
But yeah, he also, I'm recognizing in Help Wanted, which is, of course, when he goes back into business, because Back in the Saddle again was basically just him being reinvigorated by a student project, and then got into a little tussle with Hanlon Charleston.
Yeah, he did.
About it. And that like really like reignited something for him that was a little bit dormant, a little bit unsure. But he was like, no, I really do. I need my own business because I got way too invested in this school project. Yeah. Or that's how we felt about it. He didn't seem to feel that way. But in Help Wanted, he's going back into business for himself, the Gilmore Group, if you will. Yeah. And he can't find an assistant because he's not going to pay his previous assistant Margie what she's making now, and just wants her to work on loyalty, which that won't make your dinner for you.
I know. I'm like,
so Lorelai helps him.
Yeah.
But this is when I realized his life is entirely run by women, but I don't think that he values that as much as he values what he does. Because like at home, everything is Emily. She plans their entire social calendar. Their standing in society is entirely dedicated. Like literally, she wrote it down and she was like, we're going to have, what is it? Lamb chops. And he's like, oh, okay. He's like upset by that. And they end up having roast, but everything is planned. But then he doesn't even know how to buy like paper for his office. He's like, gets one ream of paper in Help Wanted when Lorelai takes him to Office Depot, because he was like, where do we get pens? And you're like, oh, Oh, wow. Wow. Okay.
Between
cool.
Margie, Emily, Lorelai, the maids. It was just
And
like,
eventually Karen, because Karen
eventually
becomes
Karen.
his assistant, who we never hear about ever again.
runs his life.
Yeah, they run his life. And it really made me realize that when they're on like their version of Office Depot. Shout out. You used to work at Office Depot, was that right?
Office Max.
Office Max.
my
I knew
first
it was
job.
one of the offices, the office retailers, but they're buying
It looks like
things and he's like-
Costco, but
it looks like the
Office
Costco
Depot.
version.
Yeah. So
But the thing is like, he is like, how do you know how to do all of this? I'm like, because she's not an idiot. Like, I
well,
don't,
and
so,
because
I'm
she
so
had
sorry,
to learn on her own.
but like, you think of how many pieces of paper are in your office, Richard. You think you're going to get one ream of paper? You'll be done by the end of the day.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, we'll get a couple pens. And she's like, no, you're not thinking big. And he's
Yeah.
like so impressed by her. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what?
I know.
Like all throughout the episode, he was like, oh, we should start a tab so we don't pay cash every day. And she's already set it up. And he's like, oh, you're really anticipating my needs, like that fellow on MASH, he says. But I just think that he doesn't take into account just how much his life is run by women, which I liked realizing in this episode,
Me too.
or rather researching for this episode, because I was like, wow, he is really like the patriarch of their family, really upholds like patriarchal values. Like
He does.
He really leans into that, definitely of the time that he grew up in, definitely from his education, going to like an all-male Ivy, that I was like, wow,
Yeah.
his life is run by women.
And,
if
you
any
know,
of them disappeared,
he wouldn't know
he'd
what to
fall
do with
apart.
himself.
Yeah.
And to your point, there is a reference that's made in The Incredible Sinking Lorelai's when it comes to his past and kind of his
Yeah.
early days before he became the successful businessman working in insurance that he is when we meet him in the pilot. He made a terrible investment in Dubliners Paper Corporation, according to Trix, when you were first
which
married.
immediately made me think of Dunder Mifflin.
Dunder Mifflin, the people persons, paper people. She said, I told you not to, but you wouldn't listen. And of course, I had to step in and bail you out. And it's never great when a parent hangs something like that over your head, because
No.
if it's offered, you know, of course you're going to take it as a child. Like, it's like you're going to allow your parent to take care of you most of the time, or maybe not, depends on who you are. But I think that when a parent comes back and like holds that over your head and uses that as like a criticism, oof, don't support that. But that is, to your point, another, just like added to the list of the ways in which like his mom, especially if his dad did in fact pass at 10, when he was 10.
He was 10.
I was like, pass at 10. What? That's weird. When Richard was 10, you know, Trix really did. She was the backbone of their family, and she raised him essentially.
Yeah.
And then also pulled him out and bailed him out of a bad investment that he made. Pulled him out of.
To be fair, though, he was 27,
Mm-hmm.
and he said that was quote unquote the time to make risks, but he already had that house that they live in. So like, because he said you would have lost this house. And what was interesting, I was like, so he's relatively successful at 27.
Yeah.
That like he had that big of a house, like that he could afford that, and then was making bad investments on the side. And then on a side note, I love that episode so much because of Emily's
Emily
face
is
during
eating
it.
it up.
And she's
Yeah.
like, and you paid it back in 2 months. And he's like, and I paid it back in 2 months. And she's just sitting there like looking like, oh my
she's
gosh, this is my
so-
favorite sport. My show's on.
I love watching
Yeah.
her during that entire argument. And it is
Yeah.
sadly the last conversation that Richard and his
It
mom have
is.
before she
Which
passes.
I think that's really good in terms of the drama for Richard.
Yeah.
Because the last conversation he had with her was a fight. But I find it very interesting if like we're talking about his relationship with Trix as he's gotten older, is that like he loves his mom. This man adores her. And she seems to have been quite hard on him throughout his life, especially at 10, being like, life is a battle.
I know. I'm like,
oh, if
my
anyone
parents
had
took me
said
to
that
Disney World at 10.
My parents took me to Disney World at 33. So
Yeah.
like, you know, but the thing is I don't understand where their closeness comes from. Maybe it's just from her encouraging him and like having that like sort of like faith in the Gilmore name. Because I think that there's some joke that she makes. It's not a joke to her, but it's a joke to us that Gilmores have strong immune systems because Emily has a headache.
Yep. Hilarious.
But the thing to like bringing Emily up is like she fucking hates her. Mm-hmm. She is so mean to Emily. She has never said a nice, caring word about that woman, not even to Richard. Yeah. But like, that's where it's so interesting that like the dynamic of women in his life, it's like he always favors his mom over his wife. And like, I think that that's one thing, because there is like a lot of traits about Richard that I am not very fond of, but I think my least favorite of his is how he always acquiesces to his mother's anger or like
disdain,
vitriol towards Emily for whatever reason.
Well,
she's not
laughs it off. It's
he
like
does.
That's really what it is. It's that he dismisses it and ignores it. He doesn't do anything.
But even when Emily brings
it
to his attention, like she's like talks about that horrible woman. And he's just like, oh, blah, 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 whatever.
Yeah. And but I will say that like he kind of does this. He really should be defending his wife, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Bar none. But
or at least don't talk about my wife like that in my house.
Exactly. But when Emily talks about it, he does allow her the space to do so. He's not like, that is my mother and you will not speak about her like that. At least that we've seen.
He's not dismissing it in that regard of like, hey.
Yeah, he's dismissing it by not standing up for her. But he at least allows Emily, and this is the only caveat I'll give, is that he at least allows Emily the space to also vet. He knows exactly how Emily feels about his mother. And I'm sure he knows that it's justified.
I think he does too. And like he lets her vent about it. You're right. It's not like he's like, don't talk about my mother like that. Yeah. It's like, well, we're just talking facts about my mother at this point.
Yeah. I think that he tries to stand firmly in the middle on those things.
Which by standing in the middle, he's standing on Trix's side.
I completely agree. But it's interesting because with anybody else, Emily comes first.
Yeah. Like if she wants the first cup of tea,
she will have the first cup of tea.
Yeah. Is that when Lorelai turns down the
Peyton Sanders? Yeah.
Peyton Sanders. Yeah. I couldn't think of his name. I was like John Hamm. Which some people might know him better as John Hamm than Peyton Sanders. Yeah. Because in that regard, he does step up for her, but
he does. But I do think that he feels an allegiance to his mother. She raised him. She bailed him out of this, bad business investment. She has always been there for him, even if she has been hard on him. And I think he feels this allegiance to her that maybe makes it difficult for him to want to stand up to her.
Yeah. I don't know. And I will say he doesn't have any siblings that we ever hear about.
No.
And you have to imagine that like if at 10 he lost his dad, it was just him and his single mother against the world. And so like what that might do, because are we not very fond of another single mother and her daughter and them against the world in a very different capacity?
Yeah.
So that's something I've never really like thought about too much until this exact moment, that Richard doesn't seem to really value Lorelai as a single mother in that same way.
Yeah, but it does make sense as to why he identifies with Rory and has such a strong connection with Rory. It could, if we want to talk about Eleanor and Eleanor, Lorelai and Richard, Lorelai and Rory.
Ooh. Oh,
I know.
Look at, oh my gosh, you're thinking thoughts over there this morning. Wow.
I love
that.
Maybe that's why he's so impressed by her, is that despite the fact that Lorelai didn't necessarily follow the path that he laid out for her, Rory has still gone in prepared for battle.
Oh my gosh, you're so right. I love that.
I do too. I never really drew that parallel until you said that. Until you talked about how Lorelai the First was effectively a single mother, if we are to believe that Richard's father passed at 10.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he
when
definitely
he was
passed
10.
at some
I
point.
keep saying that. Passed at 10.
When Richard was 10. No, not when he was 10. But yeah, they still were second cousins, which that still blows my mind. But I will say, I do feel like Richard is more prone to protecting the Gilmore name. And I don't necessarily think that when it's like Emily, Richard, and Trix, he necessarily feels like he needs to protect the Gilmore name in that regard. Not that it's not a reason for him to not stand up for his wife. But he definitely, like, I'm thinking back to Christopher Returns standing up for Lorelai, which I cannot stop thinking about. I guess in a couple of weeks, the episode with Hannah Grace, the author on Gilmore to Read will air. She was talking about things she likes about Richard, and she says he likes when he stands up. I thought she meant physically. She liked how tall he was.
Very tall.
Very tall man. She meant when he stands up for his family. And I just genuinely can't stop thinking about that. It was like one of my less intelligent moments on the podcast. There have been many. I could list them out. Barack Obama's parade tour.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Archibald.
Parade tour.
Who's that?
Who's Archibald?
Who's Archibald? But that one was like, oh yes, when he stands up, big man, tall man. She meant for his family.
Yeah.
Which he does.
Which he does
in Christopher's Return.
You know, I think that moving on to what he values, I do think that like the family name, the Gilmore family name, is something that is so high on that list. Like, yeah. But terms and conditions apply.
Terms and conditions do apply.
You know,
read
it's
the
like,
fine print.
I value family, but terms and conditions apply. You know, because like, he will absolutely stand
first.
up to people, especially like men, specifically Strobe, Mitchum.
This is something we talked about though when we were prepping for this. Is he will believe you until he sees it, despite being told by other people that it's wrong. Mm-hmm. So like with Strobe, like Lorelai knows that Strobe hates her. Yeah. But until he sees it with his very eyes and grabs him by the lapels and kicks him out, he's like, you're not leaving. I'm kicking you out to Strobe, which I love. But the same thing with Mitchum. He was like, oh, that was all a misunderstanding. And Mitchum was like, no, it really wasn't. I really told her that. I really told her that she would be a better assistant and doesn't have what it takes.
Crush
lots
that
of love.
Girl.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like Mitchum doesn't hold it back. He was like, you know, it's
you would have done the same thing.
Yeah. And like, no, he wouldn't have, because that's a Gilmore. And it really takes seeing it.
He has done the same thing to Dean. This family has standards. You live up to them, and we expect that everyone you surround yourself with live up to them also.
But it's also that thing of like, he values people standing in society. And
yes, he does.
Dean has no standing, also no commitment to education. But we know that Strobe, he was bound for Princeton. He like really values that. Yeah. Mitchum, he's Mitchum. So like he really values that. But a question that I had for you is an episode that we watched recently, of course, was Haunted Leg. Mm-hmm. And that is when they're at Friday night dinner, sans Richard, and Christopher comes over and we witness the scene between them. And we really see Emily witness kind of Chris being the worst.
Chris, yeah.
How do you think that Richard would have reacted to that? Do you think we would have had like a Strobe Mitchum moment where it's like, get out of my house?
God, I can't even picture it because Emily does it so beautifully.
So well. Christopher, you need to leave.
Yeah. And I almost prefer that.
Now. I love it. I think that's one of Emily's best moments, and I wouldn't want to take it away from her. But it's just more of like the reaction, because for some reason he really values Christopher.
And I think that comes back in Lazy, Hazy, Crazy Days of Summer, season 3, episode 1, when Lorelai is like, we're not together anymore. His girlfriend is pregnant. Richard immediately is like, yeah, of course Christopher's going to do that, because Christopher always would have done that. He wanted to do it with Lorelai, and Lorelai didn't let him. Yeah.
That's so true.
I do wonder if witnessing that.
Because he has to witness it is really what it is.
Yeah. I do wonder if witnessing that in the following episode would have changed his outlook on Christopher as a whole, because I don't think get a lot of, I mean, until season 7, if you want to consider that canon, we don't really get a lot of Christopher's opinion or Richard's opinions on Christopher after that episode.
That's true. It's really just very Emily forward at that point.
Is.
Because like Emily could witness it as she did in Haunted Leg and still move forward with her plan. She
I was
like,
going to say,
it's okay.
still show up in season 5.
What is it? I've
when
never
the
thought much of
Teletubbies
you.
are on. Yeah, exactly.
Like thought he was a weak man.
Yeah.
Is that what she says? Is that what she calls him? I forget
Yeah.
the word she uses, but yeah, she's never thought much of him.
Yeah.
And it seems like she's a lot more willing to just let things go, whereas once he sees it, he can't unsee it.
Game over, yeah.
Yeah. So I always wondered if he would have seen that, if he would have moved in that direction. Because yeah, he always thinks very highly of Christopher, at least until that moment.
But I think the reason that he feels so highly about Christopher, thinks so highly of him, is because adding to the list of Richard's values is he believes in order. He believes in quote unquote following the proper procedure. And I think that Chris, when we see the flashback in Dear Emily and Richard, we see that Chris was very sheepishly, but very willing to follow the plan.
Yes.
And that is something that Richard values. He's like, he says something in regards to the grapefruit, actually, in Richard and Stars Hollow. Like, there are many things in life that we don't like, because she's like, I don't like grapefruit. He's like, well, the benefits that they give them far outweigh the, the displeasure of actually having them. And I think that that is exactly, it's such a pertinent quote to who Richard is as a character and how he lives his life, because that is exactly what he wanted Lorelai and Chris to do. It's like, we don't always like the things we have to do, but we have to do them. And I do think that that is a very generational thing.
Yeah, 100%. And like a lot of Richard's values, I feel like the writers really nailed him very well, of like, he's very contradictory to what he values and his actions upon them. And I think it is like, he really is just rooted in like patriarchal values that like were instilled in him from his mother and like from his own upbringing, that I feel like it makes a lot of sense. Because I think that with Chris, it's like the potential, like you agreed with me and you were going to go along with me, which says a lot more than the fact that you never showed up. Like, you were going to, but my stubborn daughter, as he calls her, stubborn girl all the time, like, because she couldn't go along with it, Chris couldn't live up to what he wanted to do, which was in Richard's eyes the right thing. And so like, Chris always wins over that, even though he didn't do anything. No. Even though he never showed up, he never went to Princeton, he never did anything that he needed to do.
Everything
his
that
business
Chris did
ventures fall through.
afterwards is almost like, doesn't matter to Richard. He was like, well, he wanted to do the right thing. So the quote unquote right thing. And I think that he's very hard and fast about those rules. I think Richard is very black and white. Emily is also very black and white, but when she witnesses things like what happened with Christopher or like the nuances of other situations, I think she is much more apt to maybe see the other side more than Richard.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that she
very little bit, like it's a very small margin.
Yeah, no, but I think she can see Lorelai a little bit better than Richard can.
I agree.
I think that sometimes he covers up his eyes a little bit, which I is interesting, because some things he values: family, of course, his standing in the community and in society. He obviously values power and wealth, because that's what he was invested in at 10 years old.
Yeah, exactly.
Suits are really important to him.
Yeah.
Loyalty.
Loyalty, for
but
sure.
on the flip side of that, he's annoyed by his social responsibility. He's annoyed that Emily has all these things that are on their social calendar that he doesn't want to do. He doesn't want to go talk to these dumb people, but he wants to be a strong, upstanding member of the Society of Hartford, not just like in his local community. He wants to be important amongst these people, but he doesn't want to be a part of all of the quote unquote frivolous things that Emily has planned for them. Yeah. And she's the only reason that they are able to do that, is because she goes out and she's a part of the DAR and she's on the symphony fundraiser board and all of these other things that she invests her time in, so that the Gilmore family name can be very strong in society. I agree. Which he doesn't want to be a part of. Yeah. And to that point, he doesn't want Rory to be like her, despite the fact that his life would fall apart if she wasn't doing what she did.
So true. In season
there's
6,
a
we
lot
see a lot of that. And we talked about this a lot
Yeah.
on Gilmore Revisited when it comes to season 6, because Richard says a lot of things about Rory that does align with Emily and her life. And it all comes to a head in 21 is the loneliest number, Rory's 21st birthday party, when he's sulking in the study and all upset with himself for not going with Lorelai's plan. And he and Emily are left to have this conversation. He's like, I don't want her to be like this. I don't want her to, you know, be in the DAR and planning these frivolous parties. And she goes, you don't want her to have my life. He's like, that's not what I meant. And she's like, that's exactly what you meant. And I'm like, yeah, that is exactly what you meant, because you view what Emily does, despite the fact that she's your wife. And this is literally what she signed up to do for you and your family.
She built your life.
Yeah. You view the things that she does as less important.
Yeah.
And less important than Rory going and getting an education, even though Emily also got an education at Smith.
She sure did.
And Rory going out and being a foreign correspondent. That is very valuable to him, which is so interesting, because I get it, but at the same time, it's like, well, then how, in what ways do you value your wife? Do you? Because I think you do, but there's something in there. There's a complex in there that also gets in the way, because Trix also frowned upon Emily and who she was. And it's like, why?
Why does Emily get steamrolled so much of the time when things are going bad?
I don't take Richard, and perhaps I'm wrong, but I don't take Richard as someone who wanted to be married to a person who was doing exactly what he was doing, who was like going out and conquering the world and had a career of her own. He needed someone to be at home.
That's what he needed.
Yes.
He couldn't have done what he did. And I think that's what I was saying is like his standing in society, a lot of his legacy as a Gilmore is built because of Emily.
Yeah.
Like, of course, like his work and like the insurance world that he has done, and like their standing in society is possible because of the work that he's done. But their place there is because of what Emily built. And I think it's interesting when we get to season 6, it really is reflective of that, like for Richard, seeing is believing, because he like I'm trying to figure out how to say like the potential of Rory at the end of season 5, when he like I think that it was Richard who let her drop out of Yale. Mm-hmm. There was like this potential that he could see in her, that he was like, she's going to make the right choices. She's going to do the right thing. But as the season 6 sort of progressed, he was watching it and he learned from Mitchum what had actually happened. And he was kind of seeing the truth of the matter. And he was like, fuck, I messed up. Mm-hmm. This is not how this is supposed to go. But he seemed so sure of himself when it was like the potential of it. Like the same with Chris. It's like he was going to go along with what he said and there was the potential of him. But like in actuality, in like the finding out the truth and in the action of it, he was like, oh, well, this is wrong, isn't it? This is wrong. Mm-hmm. And he has his little pity party in his study.
It's true.
So I think that for him, he likes to think the best of a situation, of someone that he's always maybe thought the best of, Christopher, despite the fact that he got his daughter pregnant. He thinks very highly of that man.
Well, he does say to Lorelai in Christopher Returns, like, don't be naive. You think I love the boy that got my daughter pregnant? You think I love him? And it's
no,
like,
but you like
you
do. Like you low-key do. Like you unreliable narrator, you do. But then like that same thing, I feel like that same idea comes back with Rory, like in season 6. It's like, oh, this is not what I wanted for her. I did not think this through. I thought the best of the situation. As it turns out, it's the worst version of it. Totally. And it's always been the worst version, but I like to see it kind of, he lives for the hope of it all sometimes, that man.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
And it's wrong. It's wrong.
Yeah.
But of course, as we go through the series, we learn about his family, his time at Yale. You're a Yale man. Like that's literally stuck in my head saying that. His work, like his family relations to all the women around him. But he also has a lot of very strong interests. Of course, he loves golfing.
He loves golf. Yes.
He loves fixing cars.
He does. Fixing antique cars is something that he really enjoys.
It happens when he retires, and then when he and Emily separate, which we didn't talk about much in this, but like we've talked about the two of them before, and we probably will again.
Yeah.
But he also talks about collecting stamps. He wanted to organize his stamp collection
in Richard and Stars Hollow.
Right. He's a reader, strong reader, which I think
loves reading the paper, loves literature. What's the series that he's been reading for like years and years and years?
I think it's a Roman Empire.
Roman Empire.
Isn't it?
The rise and fall of the Roman Empire. Yeah.
Yeah. His Roman Empire is the Roman Empire, as the saying goes. And I think that's why he relates so much to Rory.
100%.
He's investing, sometimes not in the best
poorly.
way. Yeah.
He's a Chuck Berry man.
He's
I'm
a Chuck Berry man
myself.
Yeah.
He was all the rage when I was in school.
That's one of my favorite things about him is how much he loves Chuck Berry.
He loves Chuck Berry. And he also loves classical music, Mozart, humming the Mozart in Prague, the story he tells in the Bracebridge dinner.
That's spooky.
When they were playing Cher, they were blasting Cher out of their boombox and he was like, I stood there and hummed Mozart.
Do you think,
good for you, man?
Richard, you can't possibly believe it's because you were humming Mozart that they moved. It's because there was a man across the street humming at them. It was not, that was not very highly regarded, if you will. He seemed kind of insane. And the last one I had was cigars because Emily got him a humidor, but then Trix quickly followed it up and gave him his father's humidor, which so Trix of her.
Yeah. Yeah.
But those were all of his hobbies that I remembered.
Yeah, he also, in season 5, when he separated from Emily, joins a barbershop quartet. So you can tell that the whiff and poofs really had like an impact on him. Yeah, it's very sweet. So
love that.
Yeah, I mean, Richard definitely, what I love about these hobbies and qualities about him is that it really humanizes him because of all the things we just discussed and the complications of his values and the way that he acts on those values throughout the duration of the season. It can kind of villainize him in a lot of ways. I know that there's a lot of discourse out there that he wasn't a good dad, wasn't a good partner in some ways to Emily, but then there are a lot of ways in which I feel like he is and was, and it's very complicated, very nuanced. And I also think that like the I am an autumn of it all from Rory's birthday parties, I think also endears us to him. And I think his hobbies do the same, that you're just like, oh, Richard is just like a little cutie man.
He's a cutie grandpa.
Doesn't mean we don't get mad at him, but
no, until we do get mad at him and you're like, oh, okay. But this also made me like, I really next year want to compare his relationship that he has with Lorelai to the relationship he has with Rory.
I know.
Because like it's
We've
so
always
different.
said that Emily is a Lorelai girl and Richard is a Rory girl.
And I really want to like dive into his side of both of those. Because like there's a line that he says, Rory is top priority in this house.
Yes, he does.
And I'm like, ooh, I would like to talk more about that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. But that is our analysis on Richard Gilmore. And in going through all of these, we were fascinated by like a lot of his relationship, not only with Emily and Rory, but with Lorelai. And something we've talked about very often in the last few years on this show is like
Gilmore
all of the things that Lorelai could have said about her dad. Because as I mentioned, like, yeah, there are definitely some moments where it's like Richard is kind of not great, especially in the pilot. I'm like, ooh.
And not always Team Lorelai.
Not always Team Lorelai.
Team snide remark.
So it's easy for us to, and I'm sure it's easy for Lorelai to remember the not so great times. And that obviously comes back in winter when they do the flashback to his funeral in A Year in the Life. And Lorelai, of course, tells a story that's not so much a fond memory. It causes a huge blow up between her and Emily. And it's like, wow, you could have said so many other things. And even in going through all of this in preparation for just an exclusive Richard episode, I was like, there's so many things that she could have said.
Well, it because on Gilmore Revisited, it was like a little bit of a joke where we're like, she could have said that. She could have said that. But then it became like very serious that we were like, well, she could have said that. We know she was drunk, but she could have said that.
It's true.
You could have just stayed asleep.
Yeah, you could have just stayed asleep. And so we're going to have a Gilmore to Consider episode in a couple of weeks about A Year in the Life, because we are coming up on the 9-year anniversary of A Year in the Life, which I know doesn't feel like monumental. It feels like the 74th anniversary issue of the Franklin. But between the show ending in 2007 and the revival airing in 2016, that was 9 years. And we are exactly 9 years removed from the revival. So it feels very symbolic. So we're going to do a little A Year in the Life Gilmore to consider and talk about some of the things that Lorelai could have said about Richard, which I'm really excited to ask our besties about. We're going to do a little question box on Instagram, but also if you have thoughts, please give us a call on our voicemail.
860-578-4653.
There she is.
If I ever go to jail, that's the number I'm going to call. So check the voicemail.
Perfect. I will. Yeah. I will keep my ears open for that one.
Keep your eyes peeled.
But before we talked about A Year in the Life specifically and Lorelai and Richard's relationship, we wanted to do a deep dive on Richard. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you do enjoy our podcast, what'd you say?
I said, I hope you enjoy Richard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we had a lot of fun kind of dissecting him and really getting into the nitty gritty of who his character is. And if you enjoyed this episode and enjoy our podcast, feel free to give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps our show grow and helps other Gilmore fans find us, which we're always hoping to connect with other Gilmore Girls fans. And also, if you want to check us out and watch us, if you're listening, obviously, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you listen to your podcast, but you can also subscribe to us on YouTube and watch if, I'm wearing a sweater that has a dog with a football jersey on it, or
exactly
Haley's wearing a little fall.
Haley looks like a witch.
Haley looks like a little witch in the woods right now, which is her dream.
That's
you can check us out on YouTube. But as we mentioned, we are really excited about our Thanksgiving merch that is coming out. Go to www.gilmoretosay.com to check it out. Don't skip
the rolls.
Don't
skip them.
And what says Thanksgiving more than an episode about food on this show?
I don't know.
Not much else. Something that I have been really, really excited to do is talk about the way that, food plays a really big role in this entire series, but specifically the way that food plays a role through two distinct characters in the Gilmore Girls' lives. Luke and Suki, Lukey, if you will.
Lukey
has always been very fascinating to me.
And we'll have more to say on that in the next episode.